is going on? Live Chat Tour Championship. Very fascinating event. The world of golf is on fire. Things are happening. Business is booming. Let's get to it this next hour or so. This is your time. Anything you want to talk about, Tour Championship, I really don't care. If you want to talk betting, you want to talk about fantasy, ownership, pivots, whatever you want to talk about, throw it in the chat. We'll get through as many as possible this week. Final events on the PGA Tour schedule, then only 2 weeks off, shortest offseason in all of sports. Get back at it for the Fortinet Championship. Then we've got the President's Cup. Lots more great stuff coming. Let's go. Hank says, who are your favorite betting plays, including starting strokes? Any value in Cantlay or Xander in your opinion? Okay, Hank. So I pulled up the grid here just so we can look at the odds together. This is via Odds Checker. So I believe I've made a couple of bets here. I want to say did I bet Cantlay and Xander? No, I don't think I did that. I definitely bet Cantlay. I definitely bet Tony Finau. So the way that I kind of look at this is Cantlay's been phenomenal. Obviously, he defended last week. He's playing great. Scottie Scheffler's been very, very good, but I still worry a bit about the flat stick. I don't really want to bet him at plus 225, especially because the 2-shot lead, not that great. Cantlay also got a 2-shot cushion, right? So that's kind of the low-key thing about Will Zalatoris having to withdraw from this event is he gets slotted out of the -7. So now it's Scheffler 2 clear of Cantlay 2 clear of Xander. I actually think that's kind of more important than the 2 shots from Scottie to Patrick Cantlay. So I bet Cantlay. I think I got it at 4-1, something like that. And then I bet Tony Finau. Tony Finau is, and I think I got it at like 28-1, which is a really good number. That is, to me, about the furthest guy back with a reasonable chance to win, right? I mean, sure. Can Colin Morikawa make up 9 shots? I suppose it is conceivable. Maybe one every 10,000 times they play this event, something like that. But I think the realistic victors are Scottie, Patrick, Xander, Rory, and I'd say Finau, right? I mean, I went through the whole thing on the DFS preview. I'm not sure if Rahm is that guy to kind of have a ceiling week. We can argue about that, but that's where I'm going for this week. Senior Senator, welcome. Says, Rick, what is the best way to build this week? Take 2 guys at the top with legit shots at winning, or fill up with cheap salary plays, or 1 top guy and 1 more mid-tier option. Okay. This is the cheat sheet at RickRunGood.com. Everything you see is from my website, RickRunGood.com. You should go sign up. So if we go back and look historically, I think that there is a decent bit of evidence to be looking at some of the cheaper guys here. So if we go to 2021 Tour Championship, and again, you can go to the Holy Grail on my website and look at this, and we just sort by fantasy points, right? This is a fantasy point game. That's really all we care about. Kevin Na last year was $6,000, scored the 3rd most fantasy points. Billy Horschel was 5,100, scored like the 7th most. And then Daniel Berger, who was 5,800, was also in the optimal lineup. So I believe Na, Billy Horschel, and Daniel Berger were all in the optimal. 2020, not as big of a note for these cheaper guys, but Sebastian Munoz was 5,900. He played well. He moved up the leaderboard, but that was a pretty chalky year. Mackenzie Hughes also had a good one. Then 2019, you look at it as well, and I think we got a very cheap, Ches Reavie, $5,100, scored the 3rd most fantasy points. And the reason for that, I think, is you're getting a situation where the salaries are almost too in line with the starting positions. And what is going to be the real value in fantasy is going to be the guys that make a significant improvement over their starting position. Can Scottie Scheffler make a significant improvement over his starting position? No, right? He can't. He's starting in first. He cannot improve on that. Guys like Colin Morikawa, guys like Billy Horschel, guys like KH Lee have a lot of room to improve on their positioning. So I believe the build is, you get down into like the, 7s and below, you get a couple of guys there, you hope you pick the right ones, and then you find the guys at the top who if they can improve, make big improvements. So I think Patrick Cantlay is a great option. I think that Rory McIlroy, while he'll be popular, he could easily move up, finish second or third, or hey, maybe he goes out, wins this thing. I think that's what you're looking for this week. Nick says, Rick, me and my buddies are brainstorming about this week. What if they changed it to all major winners start at 10 under and then stagger the start from there by points? So you get an additional benefit if you win a major championship. It's not bad, I guess. I don't think, like, as a golf fan, I think that makes sense. As the PGA Tour's crowning achievement, I don't think it makes a lot of sense to give a bigger benefit to guys that won non-PGA Tour events, right? Like, I just don't think they'll do that because they don't control the major championship. So why would you put a big emphasis on those in your championship? So I don't think that would happen. I pitched the idea of having this start as this basically being a 3 event long 216 hole aggregate score, right? So you take your scores from FedEx, BMW, and Tour Championship. You add them all up. That guy wins, and you advance guys via FedEx Cup points. I have a podcast about that if you want to go hear about it. But good idea, Nick. For a golf fan, I don't think the PGA Tour will ever agree to it. Matt says, okay, Rick, here we go. I'm 6th in my one and done. And I need to be 5th to be in the money. Who would you use between Homa, Matsuyama, Scott, Stallings? That's 2 different guys. And Straka. Because of score, go with Straka. Okay, so I imagine then, Matt, you are using the strokes. So if you're using the strokes, you have Homa 2 under, Matsuyama 2 under, Stallings 3 under, Straka. Oh, you have Adam Scott, but he's further down than that. He's even par. And then Straka's at 4 under. So I think you're reasonable. I think your options are Scott Stallings or Sepp Straka. And you have to decide whether is Scott Stallings 1 shot better or more than Sepp Straka over 4 rounds. Well, we can kind of get an idea of this, right? Like, we could plug Sepp into the power rankings. We could plug Scott Stallings into the power rankings. Actually, I guess I could use my matrix for this. And if you look at the last 24 rounds, like, Scott Stallings is way better, right? This is per round. He's like 2.5 shots better per round. If you look at the last 8, which last 8 is the best possible version you can get of Sepp Straka, these guys are nearly even. So what do you think is going to happen? Do you think Sepp Straka is going to play like these 2 guys are going to play like they have in their last 8, or they're going to play like they have in like any other time frame? Any other time frame, this becomes a huge edge for Scott Stallings, especially over 4 rounds. So I'd probably go with Stallings. If we do use the matrix, I introduced this on the DFS preview. So if we look at the matrix here, which this just looks at a lot of different things, but, like, the percentile finish needed to move up and move down. So basically, if every single golfer plays to their average, Scott over their 36 round average, Scott Stallings would finish 12th. Sepp Straka would finish 28th. If you look at last 12 rounds, which is much more beneficial to Straka, Stallings would finish 11th. Straka would finish 22nd. I mean, I'm not even kidding. Only the last 8 rounds have been interesting for Sepp Straka. Everything else is pure kind of hot fire garbage. So I think you're rolling with Stallings here. At least that's what I would do, and give up the stroke. Rick, I think Zalatoris should win the money associated with him placing based on posting a final score of his -7. Yeah, that's actually not a bad idea, right? I mean, he starts at -7. He doesn't play any rounds. Why does he finish 30th? Shouldn't he just finish wherever -7 ends up, which, as Phil notes, is T14? This is the first time that we've seen injury derail a payout in this format. So if this was the old format where they did everything by FedEx Cup points, he would not lose his FedEx Cup points, right? Because they don't reset. So he would just finish wherever, 6th, 7th, 8th, and he would get that bonus. But because we start over and we wipe the FedEx Cup points, it's a multi-million-dollar loss for Will Zalatoris. So it's quite unfortunate. I don't know if I have necessarily a great solution. Maybe he does get paid for whatever -7 is. I mean, that's not horrible, right? It gives him a little bit of a defense. It's not bad. Good day to the Run Goods. Thank you. Good day, Oliver. Thank you for another great year of Golf DFS. Thank you. Appreciate all new aspects of the website and all that you guys do to keep upping your game. Oh, there's no question here. It just says, enjoy the well-deserved break. Thank you, Oliver. Much appreciated. Rick, you're the man. Scottie's had 2 horrible putting performances at Eastlake. Why will this time be any different? Okay, well, let's look into this. And I'm not sure, not necessarily sure this time will be different, right? But let's look. So let's get on the same page here. So Scottie at the Tour Championship. Let's look at his putting performances. -6 last year, -2.6 in 2020. Horrible. What has he done recently? Well, he did gain a stroke putting at the BMW Championship, which, by the way, I want to be clear. I've been railing against Scottie Scheffler's putter for the last 2 months. He is so good that he has been able to post unbelievable results while being an objectively worse putter than he was earlier this year. And also, when he gains 1 stroke, he might just win the thing, right? That's how scary good he is. But it's a true fact that he's not putting nearly as well. I don't know why this would be any different, right? This is a guy who's lost strokes putting in 7 of his last 10, which is way worse, almost a shot or more, basically a shot per round worse than the stretch earlier in 2022. It's not horrible. It's just not as good. I mean, if you look at this, I think you would expect, okay, Scottie's probably going to lose between 2 strokes putting and gaining 1 stroke putting this week. Like that's the most likely range of outcomes. Those 3 shots right there. Hey, Rick, I was looking at different mathematical combinations based on the matrix you created. It appears that only a handful of guys can actually win the FedEx Cup. I agree. Please advise on lineup then it cut you off. I think maybe strategy is what you were going with. So I made this quite clear, at least in my opinion, on the Monday show. I think there were 6 guys who could win this. Now Will Zalatoris is out. So I think there's 5 guys. If you want to argue Jon Rahm, here's the argument. If you give Jon Rahm the ceiling from his last 100 rounds, which benefits him because he's been better in the last 100 than he has been in the last 36, 24, 12, etc. So if you give him that ceiling and you say, okay, well, Jon Rahm is going to go out and have hold on. Actually, you can see I was already messing around with this. So 50-50, sorry. I was obviously playing with this. That's how this works. So he's going to start here. Okay. So he's at 3 under. So he's got to make up 7 shots. Jon Rahm would have to have about a 75th percentile performance. He has to gain about 14 strokes to the field, and that assumes everyone above him plays to their average. If Scottie Scheffler goes out and plays just a little bit better than his average, he's already boxed out Jon Rahm, right? And that goes for basically anybody who's going to start ahead of Jon Rahm. So you're asking for a lot of things to happen for Rahm to actually win this. So the strategy, at least for fantasy purposes, which is much different than who can actually win, is again, guys that can improve on their position and trying to get I think playing Scottie is objectively like a bad idea. We have seen in 2 of the 3 years that we've done this, the guy who ends up winning the FedEx Cup is not the guy who scored the most fantasy points. In fact, it might be 3 years out of 3. Has not scored the most fantasy points. So I really think it's almost objectively bad to play Scottie, and he might burn us, and he might go out and win by 7 shots and make a bunch of birdies and a couple of eagles, and he retains his 30 points for finishing first, and he just burns everybody. But I think it's kind of objectively bad to play Scottie based on what we know, 3 years worth of data, how this is likely to shake out, the paths for other golfers. And if he burns me, right? He's had an unbelievable year. Greetings, Rick. In normal weeks, you've mentioned cumulative ownership in the 30 to 60 range. What does that look like this week? Is 120 too high? Well, let's think about it, right? If you have 6 golfers, if every single lineup has 6 of the top 30 golfers in it, so you're rostering 20% of the field in every single lineup. Most weeks, so last week, there was probably twice as many golfers. So if you were living at 60, now you could argue 120 is bad. Yeah, that's not bad. I do think that you just want to be a little bit more selective, right? Because what we're seeing and I'll show you the ownership that I have here, and we'll just look at the projected ownership. The lowest projected ownership guy that I have right now is Cam Young, 11%, which is shocking for how good of a year he's had. Matt Fitzpatrick, 13. So that's your low end of things. Then your high end of things is you're going to have guys that are upwards of 40%, right? Like you might have Aaron Wise at 40% or something like that if this gets out of hand. So I think you could set your total ownership 100, 120, but then also maybe if you lock it, you can kind of if you lock in like Matt Fitzpatrick, you could probably go higher than that because you'll at least have a little bit of leverage here on one particular guy. Hello, Rick. Thank you for another awesome year. Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you. Also, remember, we're going to start up again in 2 weeks. So don't get, too comfortable with football or whatever that sport is they play. We're going to start right back up and things are going to be great. What's the farthest starting point you would look at for an outright bet? I keep eyeing a certain someone named Finau. Yeah, I've bet him, right? I'm with you there. So here's the path. Let's go back to last 36. Scottie can win it, obviously. Cantlay can win it. I believe. So hold on. And I don't want people to think that I don't like Sam Burns. I talked about this on Monday. Sam Burns needs a really, really high ceiling week, which is something he has not had, at least in his last 36. His ceiling is lower than Rory's, Finau's, Cam Smith's, Matt Fitzpatrick's, Cam Young's. It's actually lower than JT Poston's in the last 36 rounds. So that's what I'm looking at when I'm like, man, I'm not sure I see the path for Sam Burns to get to the top of the board, right? He needs to have a really big week, right? He needs to have a 75th percentile week and have everybody else play to their average and no one else pass him. So I'm not as high on Sam Burns. So Scottie, Patrick, Xander, Rory, Finau. That's it. That's what I believe the guys at the top are. Cam Smith is like honorable mention, right? Especially with Zalatoris out. With Zalatoris out, I think, it's still pretty tough for Cam Smith to get there. He needs a 69th percentile performance with everyone else playing to their average. It's gaining 13 strokes to the field. Can he gain 13 strokes to the field? And obviously, it's kind of hard to comp that against some larger full field events. But let's just look at it. 13 strokes to the field. Did it at the Open Championship. Fell just short at the Masters. Did it at the Players. Did it at the Tournament of Champions. Did it at the Northern Trust. Okay. And that is, that assumes everyone else plays to their average. Cam Smith, honorable mention. It's like 5.5 guys that can win it. Hey, Rick, when's the next one and done? So I'm probably planning on doing 2 one and dones next year. A full season one that will start the Fortinet and run through the BMW Championship, and then the standard one that will run probably Sony to the BMW Championship. I am just a glutton for punishment. I don't know why. Like I obviously make no money off that. Be very clear. I think people, there was a $3. I don't even want to say a fee. There's a $3 fee for the website that hosts it. And I think some people thought that I get that money. I do not get that money. That goes straight to the website. I do not make money off of it, but I think it would be fun to have 2 different ones going, which would be cool. Any concerns about Finau's past performances at Eastlake? Let's look together. So last year, very bad. Lost 4.5 strokes to the field. 2020, about broke even. 2019, he was great. 2018, he was pretty good. 2017, he was great. No, I think that's fine, right? I think that's fine. I think we can agree Tony Finau is a different golfer now, right? So 2018, he had a phenomenal year, but this is his best year since 2018, and probably the second best year of his career, at least statistically. And of course, with the wins, it's like definitely the best year of his career. So no, I would not be all that concerned about that. Hate to be that guy, yet here you are. But how do the payouts work for your one and done that just completed? So I'm sorry, Patrick. You're gonna have to be the guy here, and I'm sorry. I appreciate your support, but as they have always worked, and I've already emailed out this week, here is how they work. I have to go through manually and set all the one and done payouts. It does not happen automatically. I already did that. I submitted them to LeagueSafe. If you log into LeagueSafe, you can vote for them and approve them. If 51% of the pool approves them, they are released immediately. If not, it takes 7 days for LeagueSafe to release them. Because we use that service for transparency and security, and so that I don't have to hold the money, there is a little bit of a lag time. That has all been communicated. Hopefully, if you've been checking your emails, Patrick, you've been better than most. I'll tell you, because some people would email me 5 minutes after the BMW championship was finished, wondering where their money was. Don't be that guy. Patrick, thank you. Does the custom model take into consideration the starting strokes? No, but you could always upload a file and do that yourself. Rick, what challenges would you like to see in the new TGL Stadium Tour? I'm hoping it has a 90s, 2000s NFL quarterback challenge vibe. Yeah, a lot of news coming today, right? Tiger and Rory are going to do in-arena stuff. Yeah, that would be cool. I mean, I think they could use both like TrackMan simulator stuff plus like, because even an arena is not big enough for multiple holes, right? So they're going to have to get really creative on technology here. So I would like to see, closest to the pin in a lot of situations. You could have putting contests. You could have long drives. You could use the sim. I haven't really thought too much about it, but I think it's going to be fun. You mentioned that Finau could win because he has the ability to gain a lot of strokes to the field based on his performances this year. Should strength of field matter when considering that metric? Well, you could use weighted strokes gained, right? So let's look at that. Let's go to the power rankings. Let's look at everybody in this field over the last, let's do view weighted. And let's go back like all year, right? Hold on a second. Let me get my stuff in order here. When I share my screen, I always get a little, here we go. Okay. So view as average. Here we go. Okay. So I want like 50 rounds because you got to be able to get a lot of weighted stuff in there. And we could even do 100. That would basically be like the entire year. Okay. John Rahm is 1 in weighted strokes gained. I will admit, Finau gets a knock here. He's 20th in weighted strokes gained. So I guess that would be the only concern. But I mean, strokes gained is also fairly dependent on the golf course. Are a lot of big numbers out there that can kind of skew the scoring average. I don't know how I don't know if I know the answer to that. I would have to go and look at it a little bit more, but Tony definitely gets hurt when it comes to strength of field things. Could we implement your March Madness strategy this week? Game theory heavy and less my picks centric. Yeah. How would we best do that? It's definitely like a heavy game theory week. Game theory this week, match play, definitely like a heavy game theory week because you're rostering so many of the guys and ownership percentages are so important. I'm trying to think if we could relate it back to March Madness in some way. Well, you could create almost like an expected value, right? And say X% of the time, this golfer is going to receive the 30-point bonus, the 20-point bonus, the 18, the 16, so on and so forth. And then kind of calculate it out from there based on what we think the ownership is going to be of those golfers. I would need a few hours to dive into that, but that has me cooking. The other thing that has me cooking is the short field for Jock Market, which is something that I've been looking at. So if you go back and look at the Tour Championship from last year, which this is Stock Market DFS, I honestly love the guys over at Jock Market. I think they get a little bit exposed on smaller field events where the payouts are much more favorable to us. So like, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but you could almost buying a share of every single golfer, I think could be profitable this week. I don't have all the numbers in front of me. I'm still looking into it, but that's something I've been kind of chatting with a couple of other people about. So anyway, Jock Market DFS, or Stock Market DFS on the Jock Market, you bid on shares of golfers. You can do it right now. The IPO for this event closes at 9 p.m. Eastern time tonight. And basically you're playing the shadow leaderboard, which is actually a little bit more interesting in some cases. So like Billy Horschel was awesome last year. Kevin Na was awesome last year. Just use the code Rick. There's a link in the description. You can go play this. Get set up for tonight. I think there's going to be a lot of value in this market. Hey, Rick, year-long earnings pool, $1 million back. Current team of Scottie, Xander, Rory, Sungjae out on Cantlay mostly due to course fit. Am I making a massive mistake? Eli friendo. Why? Is he not our reigning FedEx Cup champion? I understand that he hadn't played well at Eastlake before that, but let's look at this. He was horrible before that, but he gained like 6 strokes last year. Yeah, okay. Gained 6 strokes last year. Gained 3 strokes off the tee, 3 on approach, 0 around the greens. I could not ask for a better performance from a guy, basically. Now he didn't, necessarily have to go out and shoot something crazy because he was already 2 shots clear. But that's, I'm willing to kind of forgive this, right? Especially because that stuff's from 19, 18, and 17. He's like a way better golfer now. So I would not necessarily rule out Patrick Cantlay based on that. How do you get unique without making a lineup that has no chance? Leave money on the table. Right? Play 3 guys under 7K or whatever, under 6,500. I think that's the way. Seems easy to say that Rory is more likely to make a run, but let's be honest. Rahm's current form gives more confidence. Interesting. Can Rory turn the putter around to make a big jump? Let's do this. I mean, there's not like I'm actually, this is what I love about this event is that it really does create a lot of strategy and a lot of really good questions. So let's look at Jon Rahm v. Rory McIlroy, because Eli's assumption here is that Rahm's current form gives him more confidence. Let's look at the last 8 rounds. Can I do that? I might have a filter on for this. No, I can't. Okay. So Rahm's been better in the last 8 and Rory's been a horrific putter in those last 8. Last 12, Rory's better. Last 16, Rory's way better. Last 20, Rory's way better. Last 24, Rory crushes him, right? So we're looking at the last 8. That's the only thing Rahm wins. And Rory is losing nearly a stroke putting while in the midst of his best putting season, the best putting season of his career. In fact, I'd argue, let's just do this. I mean, we're here for this, right? I got time. You got time. You're here for it. Let's look at strokes gained by tournament. I don't know what we're going to find here. So let's do this together. Let's do Rory and Rahm. By the way, if you hold control or command, you can select multiple people and just do tee to green, best tee to green performances of the season. Rory has 5 of the top 6. Isn't that what we want? I don't know. I think Jon Rahm's fascinating. I don't think I can agree with the sentiment that he is giving me more confidence than Rory McIlroy is. I'm not sure I can get there. Rick, happy Wednesday. Thank you. I have 2 top guys, Finau, and I'm trying to fit Morikawa in. Yeah, like that. What are your recommendations to fill out or change the lineup? David, appreciate your support. I'm not going to spend your money. I don't let you spend mine. I like both those guys. Fill it out with guys you're comfortable with. Do you think Wise is at an advantage or disadvantage playing solo tomorrow? I wish I had that information. I think generally it's probably a disadvantage. I watched Emiliano Grillo play a couple of holes after Will Zalatoris withdrew last week, and I was on site in Wilmington, and he just looked very uncomfortable. I'll be honest with you. It looked like he was spending a lot more time taking reads on things that he normally wouldn't, and he knows he has to play slow because he's in between groups. At least Aaron Wise will be out front, but I think it's just a little weird. And I think I don't think it's one way or another, but if you made me pick, I think it's a little bit of a disadvantage. Hi, Rick. Outside of the top 5, whom you mentioned as outright bets to win, what other outrights would you sprinkle? So I would move. So I think what I ended up doing for the non-starting stroke market, that's where I would sprinkle this stuff, right? You could get really frisky with like the 80-1 Scott Stallings. Sepp Straka, believe it or not, like as much as I do not like Sepp Straka this week, he's like 150 or 200-1 without starting strokes in a 29 player field. That's wrong. That's wrong. He will win the non-starting stroke version way more often than that. I mean, he won a full field event this year, right? So he should not be 200 or 150-1 or whatever it is now. Morikawa, I love without starting strokes. I bet Fitzpatrick without starting strokes, and I bet, I think I did bet Stallings. Poston is actually kind of interesting as well, right? Like Poston's been very, very good as of late, and without starting strokes, you're getting a really good number on him. You said ask anything. Thoughts on today's student loan forgiveness announcement? I didn't see the full thing, but I thought, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, $20,000 up to, I think there was an income limit, 120, which also, I think it depends on what type of grant that you have. And then I also saw that it's being paused until repayments being paused, I think until January. So I think that's the gist of it that I have. I think that in general, most people don't like that other people are getting forgiveness on things that they paid for. It's understandable. However, I tend to think that student loans or debt in general is much more impactful in other sectors than just saying, I have $100,000 of student debt or I have $20,000 of student debt. There's pretty clear evidence that having that debt stops you from doing other things, right? Stops you from spending, stops you from buying a home, which hurts the housing market, stops you from potentially securing higher education, which I think we can all agree a highly educated society is generally a good thing, right? I mean, I think there are larger ramifications throughout everything than someone being forgiven $20,000 of debt. Like, I'm not going to get upset about that if it allows for spending and people to have, like, I don't know. I don't particularly have an issue with that. So great. Awesome. Doesn't impact me whatsoever. I've paid off my student loans. I'm certainly not going to besmirch someone who is going to get a little bit of forgiveness. All good. We can all do this. Thoughts on Adam Scott? Yeah. So I think Adam Scott, along with Aaron Wise, are two of the likely candidates to be like the highest owned golfers. Adam Scott is proving the get hot at the right time model, right? We saw Billy Horschel do this a couple of years ago. He hasn't won a playoff event, but when you go T5, and he started outside the top 70 in Memphis. So he played his way into the BMW championship. And then I think he started outside the top 30 in Wilmington. So he's played his way into both of these events, which is really, really impressive stuff. I still see a stat profile that I'm not particularly thrilled with. You know, he just finds a way to get it done. He's not dominant in one aspect every single week. He is not horrible in one aspect every single week. And he just finds a way to get it done. We can look up his tour championship stuff or his East Lake stuff because he's probably played this event about 1 million times, right? Let's see. So, actually hasn't been here since 2019. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good record, right? He gained strokes on the field in his last 3 trips to East Lake, even though they are over 8 years. I don't mind this at all. I think he's going to be quite popular, and then Aaron Wise is probably going to be the other guy. But this is reasonable, and this is a hot golfer at the right time. Yeah, so like here's TJ. Biden just canceled my student debt, so I have some extra cash. Like, great, that's awesome. Like, I'm stoked for TJ, right? I'm not going to be upset with TJ. That's awesome. And he wants to spend it on bets. Like, how could I be upset about that? What are your favorite value plays to finish top 10 without strokes? Okay, so let me pull up my cheat sheet so I can see where these guys are without strokes. Okay, so without strokes inside the top 10. Ooh, and value. Poston, almost certainly, right? And then I think Sahith is interesting. Sahith was horrendous off the tee last week, but he's usually a gainer, and he kind of just like I don't know the term for it. Like he rises to the occasion, something like that. Like when he is being asked to do something, he gets it done a lot, and he finds himself in contention, really high ceiling, really high, low floor type of golfer. So those would be two that come to mind. What do we trust more, putting on Bermuda or course history? Well, Matt, I'll let you decide, and we'll see if we can find maybe an intersection between the two. So let's say, okay, so let's just go like last 5 years at East Lake. I think that's much more reasonable than looking at like everything. So let's do last 5 at East Lake. Xander, number 1, Adam Scott, only 4 rounds, number 2, Rory, JT, John Rahm, Victor, Scottie Scheffler, Aaron Wise, Billy Horschel. Actually, Billy Horschel is pretty interesting too. Playing well, all that fun stuff. And then let's do last 5 years of, what was it? Putting on Bermuda. Okay. Putting on Bermuda, and we'll do putting on Bermuda. So who else? Okay. So Billy Horschel kind of shows up on both of those lists. Not a lot of other overlap, right? Xander's 8th on Bermuda, but was great at East Lake. There's really not a lot of overlap here. Adam Scott, like 12th. That's kind of interesting. So if I'm going back and forth between them correctly, Billy Horschel might be that guy. If I only had to choose one, I would say East Lake. I always love these questions. This is such a good question, Jared. I get that ownership is always important, but in an event like this where it's likely the winning lineup is duped, should we even worry about it? So Jared is saying, where I'm so much more likely to be duped, shouldn't I just put myself in a position to be duped more? And I would look at that and say, in a scenario which you are so much more likely to be duped, shouldn't I try even harder not to be? I don't know the right answer, Jared. I will try not to be duped. I think that I think this is a much larger conversation around what is likely to be a winning lineup versus what is likely to be an optimal lineup. And obviously they're much closer this week with only 29 golfers in the field. But I think when you start looking through the lens of optimal lineups versus winning lineups, I think you'd end up working really hard about being unique. Rick, curious how you usually typically fare doing tournament for DFS purposes, or this tournament. Is there something you typically do differently? It's actually funny. I was just looking through, I can't remember what year it was, but I created a video. This was years and years ago. I created a video. I actually created a blog post about it. I had max entered this event, 150 lineups. I was in the thick of it. I actually, if you guys remember, I'd have to go back and look. Henrik Stenson made like a 60-foot bomb on 18 that moved him from like 3rd to 2nd. I think that cost me like $100,000, right? And I ended up, that moved me, it moved like Bubba Watson down or something like that. But he made a bomb putt that meant nothing on the 72nd hole, and it cost me a lot of money. So I think in general, if you're going to play this, you need to find ways to be different. I mean, I know that it's the same thing as every week. It goes back to the comment that Jared had. I think you just have to work harder at being different this week. And whether that is 3 cheap guys or a couple of low-owned guys or leaving $3,000 on the table, I think it's advantageous for you to do that. How do we feel about Cam Smith? Well, I got a report on the ground that said, and I quote, hold on. Rough is not as thick as I expected, but still lush in spots. Golf course is wet. The ball is not rolling at all. Greens are immaculate. JT Poston called them, quote, the best greens we've seen all year. The rough is very inconsistent. Lots of big flyers. I'm looking at a photo of 2 golf balls in the same spot where one is sitting up and one is sitting very much down. I would say playing out of the fairway is going to be critical. What we know about Cam Smith is that he struggles to find fairways when things start going sideways, but he's able to get it done in a lot of different ways. I'm like a 6 out of 10 in terms of excitement on Cam Smith. I think that, I just added him to like the 5.5 golfers that I think can actually win this thing. And if he can keep the ball in play, he's super, super dangerous. That's what I'm going to ask of him. Keep the ball in play. What has he done here at East Lake? Can we look at that together? Because I think that would be quite interesting. Cam Smith, 12 rounds, hasn't been good. And I wonder if that is because he struggles with accuracy. And these are the last 2 years. He's lost stroke. He's never gained strokes off the tee here. I maybe I would downgrade that to 5 out of 10. That worries me a little bit, especially based on what I've heard. Whoops, lost my spot. Hold on, let me get back to it. Scottie isn't the type of player that will play this safe, though. He's going to still play his game and try to score, I think. Great. Then you should play Scottie. That's awesome. Any fun narratives you like this week? You can always go with the Georgia guys, but no, I don't think so. Rick, what's your ideal stack with the top plays priced so high? It's impossible to stack the top and still have enough salary to cover value. I'm not sure. I don't have it in front of me, but I mean, I'm willing to go pretty low on this board. So I think maybe an ownership considered, the best stack, Cantlay, and then like Matt Fitzpatrick. I think I like that a lot. Any news on Hideki regarding an injury? No, haven't heard a thing. Seems to be fine. Liking him as a pivot. I have him at 14%, which is about as low as you're going to get in this thing. And certainly lower than guys like Corey Connors and Colin Morikawa, who are just below him, who are going to be twice the ownership. So yes, I think that is interesting. Is Tom Hoagie playable? This is kind of the $1 million question, right? Is Hoagie or Sepp Straka playable? I mean, you could make a case for any one of 29 guys, especially with how cheap he is and his ability to move up. But man, this is about as bad of a stat profile as you can get. He's hemorrhaging strokes everywhere. He popped at the 3M Open. He popped at the PGA Championship. Otherwise, it's been heinous. I just could not imagine rostering this guy. And I love Tom Hogan. I've played a lot of him this year. But that's troublesome. It's probably his first. Yeah, it's his first time to Eastlake. I'm out. I'm sorry, Tom. I would love to play. I just don't see it. Highest ceiling below 6,900. Well, I can probably just tell you, right? I don't have to necessarily guess at this. So if we look at their data for the last 36, is that good, Lincoln? I like last 36. Under 6,900 would be the highest ceiling. So that's like here would be KH Lee and JT Poston, pretty significantly, by the way, compared to those other guys. That's pure ceiling because they also have lower floors. But that's the answer. Any complete fades? I mean, complete. If you play a lot of lineups, you're probably not completely fading anybody in a 29 player field. But like, I will be burned if Scottie Scheffler wins this thing. Sorry, that's not true. I will be burned if Scottie Scheffler is the highest fantasy producer. I won't be burned if he wins it because he might finish 6th in fantasy points. And he can still win the FedEx Cup. If Scottie Scheffler wins, or if Scottie Scheffler is the highest fantasy scorer, I'm screwed. I probably will not play Sepp Straka. I probably will not play Tom Hoagie. I think everyone else is, obviously, if you're playing more lineups, but like those are the guys that I just probably will not have any. If you had to lock one person into 100% of your lineups, who would it be? I think this is interesting because if you're playing literally 100%, you can almost out chalk the chalk. So someone like a Colin Morikawa becomes a lot more interesting because you're now out chalking the chalk. But I think if we look at this, let me look at the cheat sheet here. One golfer in 100% of lineups, all things considered. I mean, I'm a sucker for Tony. 16% projected ownership, 9,600. He's not overly expensive. He has a lot of room to move up the board. That's not bad. Although I'm actually shocked. If you guaranteed me that Cantlay comes in at 19.7, it might be him, right? Because he could legitimately win this. He probably does. Even if he plays poorly, he probably doesn't fall that far. So I would say it's either it's either Cantlay, Finau, or Morikawa, I believe is the answer to that question. I answered a lot of these, so I'm gonna keep going, which is good. Any way to start a lineup with Scheffler and Cantlay? I just don't see a way to build starting with both of them. Yeah, you'd have to dip down pretty far. If we bet a player without strokes, does that mean no strokes will be counted for no golfers or just the player we select for no golfers? It just says what their raw score is. Hey, Rick, considering the amount of guys in the field this week, do you foresee a bunch of ties for the top spots? I think last year it was only 2 guys that won the big event. I think it's going to depend on what the optimal is. If the optimal is very, very chalky, if the optimal is Xander, JT, Morikawa, Stallings, Aaron Wise, 150 people are going to split the top prize. If it's, Cantlay, Cam Young, Hideki, there might be a solo winner. So unfortunately, that's probably quite dependent on who actually becomes the optimal. There's just some crosstalk here. Leaning towards a top guy with Xander or Cantlay. Cantlay starting at 8, Xander starting at 6. Does that factor into your decision making? Yeah, of course. Oh, between these two? Yeah, no, I would start with Cantlay, right? I mean, I would prefer Cantlay. He has 2 shots on Xander. They're both great. Cantlay outdueled him last week, and he's the defending champ. I think that's the guy. Oh, I'm getting now to the responses. Oh, good. I got to the political comments now. I'm stoked about that. Jim says game in 2024. No, it does impact you through your taxes. Sure. Everything does, right? There's a lot of stuff I don't want my taxes to go to that they're going to. So yeah, I get it. It's not a zero-sum game. Things can be good, bad, or somewhere in between. Oh, I love the political commentary. I'm so glad we brought this up. Okay, this is the last thing I'll say about this. If this is true, which I don't know if it's true, which I think Eli is implying that it's going to cost $2,100 per taxpayer in an increase for this forgiveness. Maybe I'm privileged or whatever. If I can pay $2,100 and TJ can have his student debt gone and a lot of people can get a lot of relief and help that they might need, happy to do it, right? We pay taxes for a reason. We want them to go to good things, right? We want our roads to be good. Don't we want a great society? I'm going to pay taxes. I want them to go to good things to help people. I don't think that's like a hot political take. On DK, is having Rory than everyone else at 3 under or worse tossing money away? Okay, let's look. And we'll do this by starting stroke here. So Rory at 4 under, then everyone else at 3. Well, let's look back at previous years. I think that's the way to do it, right? Because let's look at last year and sort this by salary. So this isn't going to be perfect, but it'll be kind of in line with what the starting strokes were. Look at the high priced guys that just did not. Rahm and Cantlay were great and JT was good. But you're talking about Bryson being very expensive and underperforming. Tony Finau being very expensive and underperforming. DJ at his price. Jordan Spieth, Cam Smith. Guys that you'd expect more points from. So I don't think this is and that's just 1 year, but I don't think it's horrible. If Rory, in that scenario, if Rory wins it, you're the man. No, I'm sorry. If Rory's the highest earning golfer, you're the man. And everybody else has a spot to move up. I don't hate that. Hey, Rick, due to field size, does that make this a better than usual week to play some parlays for finishing position? Interesting. Possibly less people tied and having to dead heat rule. Hey, Rick, I don't know if I understand this, Chris. Hey, Rick, due to the field size, does that make this a better than usual week to play some parlays for finishing position? Possibly less people tied and having to dead heat rule. I think I'm following the logic. Maybe a little bit better. I don't know that for sure, but I'm following the logic. Here you go. Andy says, Cantlay and DJ won from the pole position the last 2 years, and neither was in the optimal lineup. So why would anyone bother putting Scottie in their lineup? That's kind of the idea that I have. And I think eventually, this is only the 4th year, as we go through this, we are going to get a time where the most expensive golfer does become the highest fantasy scorer. That's going to happen at some point. But for Scottie to do that, he is going to have to almost play against his own incentives, right? Scottie Scheffler, believe it or not, does not care about our fantasy lineups. And Ted Scott, maybe the best caddy on tour right now, will be guiding him through rounds based on his position on the FedEx Cup leaderboard. And when you don't need to take on any risk, why would you? And when you have guys who are going to try to chase you down and try to make a ton of money in the process, who are going to take on a lot more risk and hopefully provide you with a lot more reward, I'm much more interested in that. And at least recent evidence, or at least the format evidence, I just think playing Scottie's pretty bad. I think it's pretty bad. And maybe he's the guy who's going to burn us this year. Maybe it's so-and-so next year or year after. And it's going to burn us eventually. I think playing Scottie's pretty bad. Do head-to-head matchups this week include starting strokes? So check with your book of choice. Most of the ones that I saw, yes, they do. And most of them that I saw, they're starting guys at the same, like they're 2 guys at 3 under are pitted against each other, 2 guys at 4 under, so on and so forth. But in general, and also if you look at the odds, you'll know. So like if you see a Scottie Scheffler versus Patrick Cantlay and Scottie Scheffler's like minus 220 or something, like that's definitely including the strokes. Odds that Reed, DJ, Sergio, Bubba tee it up at Augusta next spring. Well, considering they're all past champions, I think it's pretty good. Outside of that, I don't think those live guys are going to play. I think that they're, I think the OWGR is going to kill those guys. So let me just be clear on this because I don't know how clear I was. I think I have 5 wagers in, and I put these in earlier this week. So let me just confirm. I'm just going to pull it up real quick. I think I have 2 with strokes and 3 without strokes, but I could be wrong. Oh, you know what? Circa did not have without strokes yet. Do they have it yet? No, they don't. So I only have bets in. I'm going to have to find a different book. Sorry, Circa. I have Cantlay and Finau in with strokes. Without strokes, I will bet. I'll have to probably pull up Caesars. I'll bet Fitzpatrick, Morikawa, Victor. I always bet Victor, and then probably like JT Poston, something like that. Thoughts on Homa? We haven't talked about Max Homa yet. I'm quite concerned about. I play Max Homa over Tom Hoagie or some of these other guys, but I am quite concerned about Max Homa. 5 straight events that he's lost strokes on approach. When's the last time he's done that? Well, I can tell you it was like right here, the end of 2020. It's been 2 years. For a guy who was at one time the best ball striker on the PGA Tour this year for an extended period of time, this is very concerning to me. He's never played at Eastlake. I'm worried. I would rather play him over some of the other guys because I think he'll find it, like he'll just get it done. He can make it up in some other ways, but that is concerning to me. Who is Armina's pick? She'll text me. Hey, Rick, I feel like you used to have FanDuel ownership once upon a time. Any reason you stopped? Do you ever play on FanDuel? I don't. The data is harder to get. Less people play on it. And when I used to offer that stuff, no one cared and no one used it. So if that changes, I'd be happy to. If FanDuel wants to reach out and help me get access to an API or something like that, more than happy to. I don't have anything against it. It's harder to do. And Mina's going with, quote, Scott, easy money. Shameful. Oh, good. Now I'm getting to the second set of political comments, which is always a fun time. Yeah, these are good. You guys are great. Best selection in the $7,200 to $8,100 range. Yes. Let's look. 81-72. So that's Sepp Straka to Hideki Matsuyama. So without considering like ownership, I think Morikawa, Connor, Scott Stallings, all very interesting. Also, by the way, is there a chance they roll out preferred lies on Thursday? It's wet there. And PGA Tour loves that. If they do, it's Morikawa and Connor season. I'll tell you that for free. Outside of that, those are the obvious ones. Could you play Jordan? Could you play Jordan Spieth? It's been this. We're like 55 minutes into. Oh, actually, I got to go soon. We're 55 minutes into this, and we have not talked about Jordan Spieth. I worry about this stat profile, but if there was ever a guy that you don't need to, like have a lot of information on and just hope he finds the magic for the week, it would be Spieth. And outside of that really horrible like punt that he had on Saturday or Sunday, I think it was Saturday, I guess. Like he was in the mix for 2.5 rounds, but that's a high risk, high reward thing. I've answered a lot of these, and I've obviously upset quite a few people based on my horrible take of improving people's lives. Gimmicky idea. Field starts with the same score. Top 5 start at forward tees. Next 5 go back to the next tee, so on. And then he says, if you make a birdie, you move forward. Yes, that is gimmicky, but I appreciate it. I don't understand this. Rick, where the plant is behind you wound be the perfect spot for that pong game. Oh, okay. Yes, I agree. This plant, replace it with that pong game. Yes, I'm in. Where can I find info on joining Rick One and Done? Never played before. Well, good news for you. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll know. I will tweet something out soon. This one just says political comment, which I actually really appreciate. All right, I got to go do an emergency pod for the first cut on all this stuff that has happened today, but let me see if I can find one more good one here. All right, we'll just end on this. I like Sahith. We'll just do that. All right, let's look at Sahith. So I think he's starting at even because he got in like 28th, 29th. This to me, this strokes gained off the tee that he lost 5.9 last week. It was very, very ugly. I'm not super concerned about it. He's generally a very good driver of the golf ball. And in fact, the 5.9 that he lost at the BMW Championship was the worst of his career. Very young career, but that is like probably unlikely to happen again. Then you look at his approach numbers, and while a bit inconsistent, the fact that he can gain 3, 4, 5, 6 strokes on approach is very, very exciting. Short game stout and the putter's hot. So the path for success for Sahith, I actually think is quite wide. And it really just requires him to keep the ball in play off the tee. That's really all I'm asking for, which is something that he may or may not be able to do. But I'm not asking him to do X, Y, and Z. I'm just asking him to do X. Okay. I love you all. I don't care who you vote for. I don't care where your taxes go. I don't care how you spend your money because I'm not going to let you spend mine. I appreciate you tuning in and talking golf. I will be doing a live show tonight with Joe Idoni, Jock Market Power Hour. If you want to come play stock market DFS, you want to get all tangled up in the market, all good. Otherwise, go to RickRunGood.com, sign up. There'll be content over the course of the next couple of weeks. I'll be making some significant upgrades to the website. I'll just be excited about it. I'll be doing some deeper dive stuff into like one and done strategy. Keep an eye out for that one and done announcement. Hopefully coming the next couple of days, give you time to get signed up for that. But yeah, have a great day. Don't get too riled up about anything that you can't control. Enjoy yourselves. I'll talk to you soon. Later.